Winner first. What do I win? What do I win? Bitcoin Graffiti says hype. He wins hype. He's going to win the hype. Robert, good morning, Bitcoiners. Boy, are you guys going to love the Moscow time I have today. I don't know why, but we have one of the greatest Moscow times you're ever going to hear. Today is too much. It's hilarious. So I'm excited to share Moscow time with you today. We got to confirm first, right? We got a major sunrise on our hands, full sunrise, right? Bitcoin running without any problems again, right? Just as steady as that old sunrise. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. There we go. There we go. All right, everyone. Ready? Are we ready? Are we ready for some of the funniest Moscow time stuff we're ever going to hear? It's too good today. All right, now we talk a lot about the elections here, right? We don't believe, of course, elections are gonna fix the world, right? We don't have a lot of confidence about what's happened in elections until now, right? But we're not alone apparently in this. Okay, both the Atlantic and the New York Times have some excellent advice for us this morning on elections. All right, so the Atlantic says Americans vote too much. All right. Americans vote too much. No one could be a full-time political animal. They say we vote too much. It's fine. Okay. So that's the Atlantic, right? Now, the New York Times had the following to say yesterday, right? Elections. I'm not kidding. All right. Everyone ready? Elections are bad for democracy. Okay. You guys get that? You get that elections, okay, this is a guest essay by Adam Grant, right? He's a Dr. Adam Grant, a contributing opinion writer, right? He's an organizational psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, right? And so, right, he says, for sure, elections are bad. So just, New York Times, elections, come on, guys. Like, what are you talking about, right? So stupid. So what if they got scammed? So what? Who cares? They're not that great, right? So Americans vote too much and elections aren't good for democracy. Okay, but we got more. We're not done, right? This one comes to us from the Atlantic as well, right? The Constitution, did you guys know this? I got an update for you, all right? It's on the US Constitution, right? So voting bad, we vote too much, but it's also bad, okay? Now the following. Now I've read the Constitution of the United States before, right? I didn't know this. I have a law degree and like all kinds of experience, right, in law. Constitutional law. I like this school stuff, right? I didn't know this. So this is news to me. All right, the Constitution prohibits Trump from ever being president again. I didn't know what. The only question is whether American citizens today can uphold that commitment. I didn't know about the commitment I made to Trump, never like that it prohibited him from being president. That's amazing. I didn't know this, right? All brand new. This one's great. This is from Atlanta, right? You can't make this stuff up, guys. You can't, right? So Atlanta College reinstates the mask mandate for students, employees on campus, but it's just going to be a precautionary move for 2 weeks. Okay, everyone. So don't worry about what's going on. Like Alex Jones said, that all the lockdown stuff is coming back. It's just 1 2 week period. We can all do that. Come on, just 2 weeks. It's okay. It's just 2 weeks, guys. It's just 2 weeks. Now, I got a couple others here that are really gorgeous. I mean, I've said before, there are certain Moscow time ones we could put in the Smithsonian one day, right? When we finally bring up all the bodies of the giants they're hiding at the Smithsonian, right? We can put it right next to the hidden giants and all the Egyptian shit they got out of the Grand Canyon. All right. So we can do it. We can put this right next to them. Okay. In a Bitcoin standard, when the Smithsonian isn't hiding history anymore, we're gonna be able to put this one right next to it, right? And it's in the same vein as elections are bad for democracy. Okay. It's in the same vein as that, but it is really good. All right. How about this one? A mild recession could actually be good for the housing market, guys. It could be good. Okay. It could be good. All right. You're gonna like the recession. It's gonna be good for you. It's gonna be great. Right. It's gonna be awesome. So don't worry about it. And I got two more, if that wasn't enough, right? If that wasn't enough. So the Wall Street Journal is here wondering, right? They're saying the Fed, you know what the Fed should do? The Fed should carefully aim. They should carefully aim, okay, guys? Not just aim. They should carefully aim. All right. So the Wall Street Journal opinion, the Fed should carefully aim at a higher inflation target. Why not? Why not? You know, the inflation's up. So why don't they just carefully aim it a little higher? And then they might hit the target, right? That's cool. Paul Krugman agrees. Paul Krugman, Nobel Prize winner, right? New York Times contributor. I agree with Jason Furman's call for a 3% inflation, because now it's 3, right? So when he says, if you read the article, right, he doesn't want to carefully aim for 2%. He wants to carefully aim for 3%, right? The careful stays and the aiming stays, but the number changes. No big deal, right? They can still be careful and they can still aim, right? It's just a different target, right? It's 3, not 2. So he says the rationale for 2% has overtaken by a couple of decades experience. So now we know, like after decades, 2% is stupid. It's stupid. Everyone knows. Didn't you know? Everyone knows, Paul says. Everybody knows 2% is stupid now, right? We've had decades of experience knowing, God, this 2% thing is, we're carefully aiming at 2, and it's so stupid. After decades, we know it. We got to go for 3. That's better, right? And then he says, I'm puzzled by his assertion that there's a lot of work still to do and that the hardest part may still lie ahead. I'm puzzled. Like, we were aiming so well, and now it's like we were careful and we aimed and we didn't hit it. And then after decades, we knew that we should aim elsewhere because then we'll hit it. So he's saying, like, it's already where we're aiming and it's already at 3. That's what decades have taught us. Just pick the number it's at and aim for that and you'll hit it, right? So he's saying most measures underlying inflation are still something, right? And he goes, so if you think 3% is the right target, shouldn't we be declaring victory? Or to put it a different way, if 2% was a mistake, how many people should lose their jobs for a mistake? That's what he's saying, right? But Walker America luckily figured it out. Okay, if everyone, the crypto couple, Walker America, he came in to Paul and he says, personally, and I'm more with Walker here, okay? He says, personally, I think we should make the inflation target 4.2%, okay? And he challenges anyone. Walker challenges anyone, and I'm with him. I'll back him up, right? No one is going to challenge us on this. It's 4.2%, guys. That's the right number. We know it. Decades of experience have taught us. It's all about 4.2%, right? That's what I got for Moscow time. I can't make this stuff up, guys. I wish I could write an intro this funny. It's just not possible, right? You can't, I'm not capable. Elections are bad for democracy. A milder session will be good for the houses. It's cool. Don't worry. Don't worry about it, right? It's so cool. Okay, this isn't Moscow time, but it's fake news. And I'm going to share it with you first because it sort of sets up what we're going to talk about. Today's theme is the creature from the American abyss. Is the creature from the American abyss, right? Off the coast of Hawaii or off the coast of Jekyll Island. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about. But we're going to work our way to it, right? The first thing we have here is an article from the New Yorker, and it's Ronan Farrow. You know who Ronan Farrow is? He's like Frank Sinatra's kid or something. I guess Mia Farrow, who's got one of the most broken brains of any human on earth, right? This person, I don't know who's taking care of her in New York or whatever, but she's got some troubles. But anyway, we're not going to talk about Mia Farrow. That's the woman. She was married to Woody Allen, the guy who married his adopted daughter when she was a teenager. So he was married to her. And Ronan had a large sort of following because he hated his pretend dad, and this guy was his pretend dad. I guess he swears he's Frank Sinatra's kid, and some people think it's true because he's got the blue eyes. That's what they used to say about Frank Sinatra. Oh, blue eyes, right? And then Ronan, I guess, kind of looks like him. But what you need to know about Ronan is he's a little bit like Anderson Cooper in the sense that, he knew everyone in New York, and then everyone realized, oh, he's such a great writer, right? Oh, wow, it's art. We're going to make him the top intellectual of New York City, right? And because he's writing. So Ronan they say was a big actor in the Me Too movement. Like he got attention to it. He wrote a bunch of the Me Too articles. As I understand, Ronan did do God's work on the Harvey Weinstein stuff, right? So that's what I understand. So I'm not here to say I don't know anything about Ronan. Maybe he is a great writer. I don't read the New Yorker, so I don't really know. But from the one article I have read, I've detected he is one of the all-time. We didn't know this about him, but he actually has the capacity to mind read. Did you know that? I mean, I thought it was maybe because he grew up in New York and had a lot of cool friends, so it's easy to get a job when your dad is Woody Allen and your dad is Frank Sinatra and your mom is Mia Farrow. And then it's easy, right? Because Mia Farrow is like a famous actress, right? She was in all of Woody Allen's movies, right? So if you hang in these circles, it's probably not hard to find a job with a New Yorker, right? Not easy. Like I don't want to say he's got zero skill, right? But it's easier when you can mind read. So his mind reading ability, right, is pretty good. And here we have it, right? He's a reporter at large for the New Yorker. And here's the article he wrote on Elon Musk. He said, Elon Musk's shadow rule, how the US government came to rely on the tech billionaire and is now struggling to rein him in, right? So, we don't have to read the whole article. I tried to read it. It's so long. And I can't get through it. It's like over 1,000 words, right? Of feelings and stuff and mind reading. So it was a little hard to get over it all. But I read enough of it to know that the skill he has of mind reading was used frequently in the article. I don't think he could have written the article if he wasn't so adept at mind reading, right? So here's what we know, right? That he wants nothing good for anyone unless he can take credit, right? So if he can take credit, right, Ronan knows, right? He only likes things that he gets credit for, okay? So anything else he doesn't get credit for, stupid is what he thinks, right? Ronan knows it. So he's letting us all know. And Ronan also knows how he gets off, right? He knows what gets Elon really excited, right? Because he talked to people, and then some of those people he talked to, I don't know if you knew it, they were also mind readers. Like I know you've never met a mind reader in your life, right? But Ronan, luckily, he's got some mind reading, but if he can't actually get near, because some people say Ronan's mind reading only works when the other person is in the room with him, right? And I think that's true. But in this case, he met someone, and by chance, that person also could mind read. So when he interviewed him, it was really just one mind reader interviewing another mind reader. So it kind of worked out, right? He didn't have to be in the room, but by proxy, he was able to mind read. So that was cool. I didn't know about this part of mind reading, so I'm excited. So they found out that he actually gets off on risk and destroying things. Like if he can risk and then destroy things, ooh, Elon's in. He's in. That's the secret. Both mind readers said it's the secret, right? And he has a grandiose ideology. That's the other thing, right? His ideology is grandiose, okay? And we know, because we can mind read, that if you have a grandiose ideology, like going to Mars and getting away from being a single planet species, right? If you're that kind of grandiose ideology, right? Everybody knows that destroying things are also a big part of it, right? So that's really great. Here's a little more, right? So he likes games, like video games, right? And one of them is Deus Ex, right? So this is what he says. Musk is an avowed fan of Deus Ex, a role-playing first-person shooter game that he has brought up when discussing his company, Neuralink, which aspires to invent ability-enhancing body modifications like those featured in the game. During the pandemic, Musk seemed to embrace COVID denialism. He embraced denialism? What? And for a while, he changed his Twitter profile to put a picture of an image of the protagonist of the game. Uh-oh. So, like, he's really, really doing crazy stuff here, which turns on a manufactured plague designed to control the masses. But Deus Ex, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is a fundamentally anti-capitalist text, okay, in which the plague is the culmination of unrestrained corporate power and the villain is the world's richest man, a media darling tech entrepreneur with global aspirations and political leaders under his control. Oh my God. You know what Ronan has discovered here, right? He didn't say it, but he's discovering that truth can be stranger than fiction. Whoa. Now, is there any connection here between, like, he said Musk was a denier, but he admires people who create plagues in video games. Okay. Even though he denied it, he admires people who create plagues in video games. So what are you going to do? Right. Now, these were the very best parts, right? The very best parts of his thing are the following, right? So Ronan comes out and he starts talking about Ukraine and Russia. And he says, one day, Ukrainian forces advancing into contested areas in the south found themselves suddenly unable to communicate. We were very close to the front line, Mikola, the signal corps soldier, told me. We crossed this border and the Starlink stopped working. Because you remember, he sent a bunch of Starlinks, Elon, right? He sent Starlinks over to Ukraine and said, hey, I'm going to help. But apparently, let's go on. It didn't help, right? He says, we crossed the border and it stopped working. The consequences were immediate. Communications became dead. Units were isolated. When you're on the offense, especially for commanders, you need a constant stream of information from battalions. Commanders had to drive in the battlefield to be in radio range, risking themselves, Mikola said. It was chaos. Ukrainian expats who had raised funds for the Starlink units began receiving frantic calls. The tech executive recalls a Ukrainian military official telling him, we need Elon now. How now? He replied. Like effing now, the official said. People are dying. Another Ukrainian involved told me that he was awoken by a dozen calls, saying that they'd lost. Whoa, someone called him a dozen times. Holy shit. The Financial Times reported that outages affected units in Kherson. Oh my God. So in the end, some American officials told Ronan that they believed that SpaceX cut the connectivity with geofencing, cordoning off areas of access. Did he have any proof that it wasn't just like internet is down or like there was clouds? No. Someone told him, okay? Someone told him that he was cordoning off areas and geofencing it, right? Someone told him, so he has all the proof he needs. So he can just talk about war and Starlink was there and it didn't work once. So, oh my God, he's out. He's terrible, right? He's terrible. So that's what Ronan Farrow had to say with his unbelievable mind reading, his unbelievable capacity to know what's going on in Elon's mind. Meanwhile, okay, SpaceX was being deployed. While now, I guess Ronan didn't go ask anyone what's going on in Hawaii, right? Because in Hawaii, they're all saying Starlink works perfect, right? Nick Sortor says the following. SpaceX Starlink Hawaii residents back online. I've been on the ground here in Maui for 5 days now, and I can truly attest to the fact, this is Nick Sortor, that Elon Musk didn't provide residents with Starlink internet receivers. This area would be, if he didn't provide residents with Starlink internet receivers, this area would be a total blackout zone. Regular broadband internet, LTE, and power are still not reconnected. Luckily, residents are able to connect to Starlink stations around Maui and receive free, unlimited, high-speed internet. Many of these people have lost their houses, cars, family members, pets, and the only reason they're able to contact the outside world and their families is via Starlink. It truly helps these victims cope as they feel much less alone. Not to mention the ability Starlink has given first responders to connect with each other while searching the disaster zone for missing people and saving lives. Do not underestimate how beneficial Elon Musk's Starlink has been to the people of Lahaina, Hawaii. It has been nothing short of a true blessing for these amazing folks. Now, again, I'm a Starlink user and I do it because I use it in the countryside, but I also do it because I fundamentally believe that we're not going to be using terrestrial internet stations anymore, and that the capacity to go anywhere because of the way the Starlink operates, right? You see these Starlink trains in the sky. I don't know if any of you have ever seen them when they go across in like sort of just literally a train. So, for example, as someone who produces a lot of Bitcoin events, one of the things I've been thinking about for a long time now, because of Starlink, was never possible before, but doing a show in a really remote area, right? We could never do shows in remote areas. And one of the areas I keep talking about doing a show is Jekyll Island, right? And I find it funny, that's we're going to keep talking about it today, but it's funny that we're talking about, these Hawaii at one extreme of the country, Jekyll Island, another island off another coast of America. And, of course, the famous book Creature from Jekyll Island, talking about the US dollar, its origins at the Federal Reserve, and how that whole thing functioned. Now, we're going to keep talking about Hawaii, but later we're going to talk about this interview that Douglas MacArthur had with Tucker yesterday, and he's the colonel. Did I say general? He's the colonel. He was on Hard Money the other day with what's her name? Great show, Natalie Brunell, right? So he was on Natalie Brunell's show a few weeks ago. I hadn't really heard of this guy before, and now I've been trying to get him at our show. So I've been looking out to get General MacArthur either next year in Nashville or coming up right now in Amsterdam. He'd be someone I'd be very interested in having. So we're trying to get him to come speak there. But this idea of Starlink, anyway, being used for event production, it's going to happen, right? If I do an event in Jekyll Island, there's a convention center and everything there, but we might not be able to rent the convention center. We're going to get some crazy Bitcoin stuff going on before the 2024 election. So the idea here being that if we do get it going, we can actually go anywhere because of Starlink. We can actually produce a show in the jungle if we need it, right? And I do think you're going to see a jungle show at some point, right? So the idea then is that if it's true that this Starlink thing is working as well as it is in Hawaii, and it looks like it was a big help in Ukraine as well. And if they are sort of trying to set Elon up to be like at fault or whatever, it's not going to work, right? It's not going to work. And one of the things that we're seeing is people like Ronan Farrow and the media industrial complex, the censorship complex. I don't know if Ronan Farrow is a Mockingbird asset at all. I have no idea, right? I have no clue. But if you read this article, it looks like he's not even asking the basic questions about Ukraine and Russia, not even the basic, right? This looks like a hit piece on Elon. It looks like a piece interested in the changing division of power between a corporate feudal lord. I mean, what other way can you describe Elon as a corporate type of feudal lord, or a prince or some king of commerce or something like that. Techno king, is that what they call him? The techno king. That's a fair title, right? The techno king. And Ronan Farrow is really just talking about the new sharing of power, or the distasteful sharing of power between what we're used to seeing as the political order, which is the elected officials and all these people, having the power. And now it seems like independent parties like Elon Musk, right? Remember, we talk about this all the time. Elon Musk has put about 80% of the tonnage into space there himself through his own rockets, through his own cost savings, right? Because he's doing it much cheaper than NASA and the Russians and the Chinese ever did. So he's shooting all these things up into space. 80% of what's up there is his. It's his. It's not a country's. It's his, right? And so people like Ronan. Maybe Ronan is trying to be an honest broker here, and maybe he's just behind, right? Maybe he just doesn't know how much the world is changing, and he's confused about private power being on the ascent, and public power and these public institutions, everything that we knew from World War II, diminishing in capacity, diminishing in capability, and existing only in title only, right? And that's why this story in Hawaii, despite the tragedy, right? We talked about it yesterday. We don't need to go into the details more. I think you're starting to see what I was saying yesterday about who died, right? It's as bad as we think. I understand kind of why they're trying to keep the actual numbers down, because you don't know how people will react. If the locals find out exactly what's going on with the death count, and they know, they're suspicious of it, but you could have a complete breakdown and public hangings, right? That's totally possible. We don't know what's going to happen in Hawaii. But we can tell, we don't know what's going to happen in Hawaii, but we can tell that the political order that we have is so out of touch and out of tune with what's going on the ground that the contrast is now more jarring than it's ever been. So Biden actually did fly to Hawaii, right? So he gets to Hawaii, and then we can see that whatever drugs they use to pump him up doesn't really get him on the right track. It gets him on a track going maybe in the right direction, right? But not really like where you want him to be. So first of all, he looked spaced out. He had to be taken a few times. And these are just clips. You don't know the context. So these are all out of context clips, but just watching people try to push him in one direction or the other, you can tell he doesn't know what's going on, right? You can tell that whatever window they can juice him up for, they went beyond it when he was in Hawaii. So we have a bit of a gauge on, maybe it was a bad day, right? Maybe he traveled, maybe it was a bad day. But we have a bit of a gauge on what he's capable of now. And it's diminishing quickly, right? Like the amount of hours they used to be able to pump him up for is way down compared to before. So he gets to Hawaii, right? Doesn't know where he's going, then makes this ridiculous speech where he compares the Maui fires to a fire he had in his own house years ago, like he had a kitchen fire. And he joked about, I almost lost my wife, my car, and my cat. And he goes, it's not the same, and all joking aside, right? And the people were like, what? We lost our children. You're talking about cars and cats. And beyond that, it's a lie. It never happened. Sorry, it never happened the way he described. His wife was never like in mortal danger, right? This story has been made public several times. It's not news, right? He was like vice president or some big shot when this happened. It was kind of recent in the last 10 years. So he's talking about his car and his thing, and he's kind of giggling when he says it. So you can just tell his capacity to reciprocate and mirror the moment emotionally is not there, right? He doesn't have the emotional EQ in order to know what's appropriate at what time. This is what dementia is often all about, right? He was even walking, like they tried to tour some of the stuff, right? And you see him get to a point and he makes a joke about how hot the ground is. And he's like trying to be like, oh, look at the ground, it's hot, right? Now, again, it could just be that I saw clips and people are trying to stoke anger. We talk about that all the time right here. So it could be that I'm just a victim. And I didn't try to get angry about it. I kind of laughed, but maybe it's not true, right? Maybe it's not true. But then the worst of all, his cameras have caught him sleeping during the memorial thing. Now, I get it. He's 80 million years old. So I get why he would want to sleep occasionally without much control over the sleep faculty. But passing out in the middle of the meeting about the victims shows this dog ain't gonna hunt, right? He's not that guy. Meanwhile, when you start looking at all of this stuff and his failures and the mounting failures and the Hawaii debacle now, and that's not going to get any better for him, right? That's going to keep getting worse. I've said for a long time he's sort of off the board, right? Like you don't even consider him anymore because they can't actually get enough out of him. And again, I think the only reason why he's still there is because Kamala is so bad that they would be worse off if they removed him. Like the hope, I think, remains, try and get him through the full term, and then you can have someone else. Because the problem is, if they put Kamala in now, she has to run for president in 2024. She can't just go for a couple of months. They'd have to come up with a whole elaborate story. It's just mixed messaging, right? You don't want that in politics. Why isn't Kamala? Why is there a thing? Why do we want someone else? Because, I mean, I think people who are around her know whatever substance abuse she's got going on, it's probably not going to get better, right? But she doesn't look like, I think you're going to be having to juice her up as much as you have to juice him up, right? Biden and her. So imagine that a guy with a 10% mental capacity compared to what he had a few years ago. And remember the formula of a vice president already is to be less than the guy or the person you were president with, right? So remember, like Mike Pence, right, for Trump. Hard to have more wattage than Trump, but Mike Pence certainly was less, right? It was sort of a perfect foil for Trump in some ways. But Biden was that to Obama, right? He was the less bright light compared to Obama. And also, Obama, like Trump, very talented, very skilled, right? Very, very easy to be second place to him and still be good, right? But Kamala is second place to Joe. She's like fifth place to Obama. So the idea that that somehow he's going to become, more charismatic and more capable is just not there. He was already chosen because he was less than Obama. In his prime, he was less than Obama, right? So now that this is happening, and again, remember what I said about the almost biblical beauty of watching someone like him stuck in his own private hell, I'm going to do all these things in my life and I'm going to be the president one day. He ran for president, what, 3 or 4 times, right? And every time had to end his campaign because he got caught lying and was a terrible candidate and all these things. Then he finally gets it when he's 80 and his brain leaves him right in time for him to appear completely like a fish out of water, trying to do a job that he just doesn't have the capacity for. It's like watching someone with ALS trying to lift weights. It's not going to happen, right? He's degrading. He's not getting better. He's just getting weaker. So the contrast of seeing him there in Hawaii and not being able to make it through a hard part about being president, but at the same time, like, you don't have to think too much about what you say. I'm really sorry. I'm really sad. This is so bad, right? We'll do all we can. Like it's the same. It's not hard to do that. If you were in your right mind, it would be no trouble at all to handle these things. Meanwhile, he's cracking jokes, lying, comparing stupid things to what he experienced, to what happened in Hawaii, and then falling asleep. None of these things really work. None of these things are making it better. They make it all worse, and they bring attention to him. Not only that, right? Vivek yesterday opening up the wider question. And I think now every time Joe goes out into the public, the wider question starts erupting, which is everything to do with Ukraine and why we're there in the first place and what is going on with Hunter, and is the whole thing related to Hunter, right? We still don't know that, right? But Vivek is pushing that cause now. And every time Joe comes out and does this kind of stuff, Vivek gets a free punch. And he took it, right? He says, the fact that we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine without Biden even once articulating why it advances U.S. national interests reeks of corruption. It's now fair game to ask whether the geopolitical disaster known as Hunter Biden has something to do with it. The bipartisan establishment is attacking me for even asking the question. Just think independently for a moment, right? So again, the amazing thing that happened in this election, the amazing thing that we saw, is more people coming on this front, right? After Elon Musk took over Twitter, and I always catalog it back to Trump. Trump was the original actor that dislodged the calcified reality of blue and red. And he broke that, what we called reality of the political order. He broke it entirely, right? Which is what I always thought he could do. He did it instantly. He did it the first day he took office. And I remember even saying to myself, kind of laughing, like, we don't even need the 4 years, whatever they do, even if he doesn't get, because remember, they were trying to get the electors, the electoral college in that time, to go against them. And even then I was saying, it ain't going to matter. It's already happened. It's too late, right? He broke people's brains just by getting elected. Now, the good news is, Elon, I think, had his path forged after that, right? Because you see how the system responded to Trump, and it did so many grotesque things, like the censorship of Twitter, that it brought Elon into the game, and it brought the person who has the most tonnage in space into the communication sphere, which has helped, I think, alleviate most of our mental health problems, because the lying and the gaslighting that happened before Elon took over Twitter was, I think, the darkest point of World War III, right? When we didn't know anything that was going on with COVID. And now, look, I don't know anything about COVID being related to the elections in 2020, but I wouldn't have said that out loud 2 years ago, right? I would have said, no way did this virus get released in order to manipulate the elections. I would have suspected it already in 2020, right? But I wouldn't have contemplated it so thoroughly as I do now. And I definitely do now, right? Now, I don't know the answer. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I know the elections were influenced deliberately by a pandemic being released. I just don't know the truth, right? It could have been some form of lab leak, right? That was all accidental, right? That's totally possible. 100% totally possible. That's what we're still hearing from China, that it was the inability of the Wuhan lab to do things safely and securely, and people got sick and all that. That could all be true, right? I have no proof otherwise. Zero. I have zero proof otherwise. But now that we're at the point in the game that we're at, looking back, knowing what we know, you can create all kinds of narratives, and they'll stick, right? They'll predict, they'll stick, they'll explain what's happening. You don't need to hallucinate anything. You don't need to imagine anything. They're just consistent. And any way you look at the model, it still makes sense, right? And now that's a pretty good test for whether or not it's true. It doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean at all it's true. But when you can actually intellectualize something and then look at it in all its dimensions like this and inspect it, it means it's consistent. It means that it doesn't have to be lopsided with invented things and craziness, right? It's consistent. So that's the good news, right? That's the good news. So now that we're in the situation we're in and people are able to start talking about this stuff more, what we're seeing is one of the most important realignments we've ever seen. Because go back to the Ronan Farrow question, right? Go back to all the Moscow Times stuff and go back to what we're seeing with our judiciary and our inability to even have that stick, right? What we're seeing is the capacity of the old team, right? The mainstream media, co-opted by Mockingbird, the political officials, the experts that would back them up with quotable references and things like that. None of that has any power, amplification. None of it works anymore, and we can tell, right? Just look at George Takei, right? You know, Sulu from what's that stupid? He was. I'm a big Star Trek fan, but not his role. He played Sulu. So here's what he says, right? He goes, and remember, this was the confluence. It was sort of Hollywood people. Now, I don't think George Takei is in on it, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying. This is just an example of someone who still gets their reference of reality from the red and blue thing and from what he's being told, right? From the Ronan Farrows of the world. What's cool? I think, anyway. Maybe George Takei is in on it. I doubt it, right? But he says, whenever you see someone saying, we could be spending that money on X instead of sending it to Ukraine, it probably originated and was amplified by the Russians, right? So he's saying, George Takei is saying, that if you disagree with what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and if you think that we should give money to Hawaii, you're an idiot. You're being manipulated. You're a Putin dupe and a stooge. Glenn Greenwald writes, that massive spending on war and weaponry impedes domestic progress and erodes Americans' quality of life has been a staple of left liberal politics for decades. It was MLK's key point on his April 4th, 1967 speech on Vietnam. Now, liberals scorn this view as Kremlin propaganda, right? So what I'm seeing is the inability of these groups to persuade, to push anyone, and that any other person who looks at the situation from the outside can sort of tell now without much confusion who the good guys and who the bad guys are, right? Now, it's not just easy as good guys and bad guys. We know that, right? Things are a lot more complicated. And the MacArthur interview with Tucker, I think, highlights that situation, but it also put into context what we're seeing in Ukraine, what we're seeing in Russia, and how America is being, or the future of America is being defined by this conflict, right? So he went on in the interview. There's a whole bunch of good stuff in it, right? I took some notes here. So what he called it, first of all, like what are the Russian objectives, right? So they talked about it. So he says basically Russians want equal laws for Russians in Ukraine. They're probably going to want, at this point, guarantees that the legal structure of what's left in Ukraine after doesn't treat Russians as second-class citizens, because apparently that was the major issue that Putin was complaining about all the time. Now, what they call it is the rump Ukraine. That's what some people are calling will be left of Ukraine after. And he believes, they're not really they talk about being, freedom. They're not a democratic country, right? And like all these things that are just not true. So what are the Ukrainian objectives? MacArthur said more or less that they want to steal money and leave the country. There's not much left. The casualties now are so catastrophic. It's about 500,000 young Ukrainian men, 60,000 amputees. The hospitals are filled. There are no more consistent platoons. They're all just piecemeal from everyone else. So either he gets American soldiers to come next, or they just want to escape and keep their money, right? So that's what he says. He calls it a world-class catastrophe. I also didn't know where Zelensky got his original backing from. It turns out it was from a guy named Kolomoisky, who's the financier of the Azov regiment, the thing with all the swastikas and all that, right? And that more or less because Victoria Nuland gave the blessing to Zelensky, that's why he won. And he also had a great line for Colonel MacArthur. Had a great line for Victoria Nuland and the neocon worldview, which is that unless the entire world is garrisoned by U.S. forces, it's not safe. So and then he made a good point on East Palestine, the train derailment, and Hawaii, both being examples of America last, especially in contrast to what George Takei was saying. This, don't talk about giving money to Hawaii. We need to win the war in Ukraine. But again, to George Takei's to question George Takei, we've never been told exactly what Vivek said. What are our objectives there? What are we getting out of this? Saving democracy? Well, what about Hunter, right? We found out already. This is from Jesse Waters last night. Hunter flew on Air Force 2 8 times to sign these deals. 8 times. He used public money to fly on Air Force 2 and go around the world and sign deals with Ukraine and China. And, has anyone asked Joe about it? Right? They're starting to. That's the good news. They're starting to. But here's the interesting thing, and this is the final words of Colonel McGregor. So what he says is, we're going to have to be pushed over the cliff into the abyss. I think that's where we're headed, right? And he says, McGregor feels the people cannot be told, they must be shown in order to change, right? And that this idea of America being the liberator and all that stuff that we know, right? Stuff that we talk about here, stuff that we've already anticipated and understood. So all of this brings me to the point of showing, not telling, right? So showing, not telling, something that all writers live by. And it's something I said the other day, the Hawaii situation is a part of that, right? It's such a loss for America to see that happen. And remember, I mentioned the Pearl Harbor connection weirdly, right? That somehow that we're dealing with this, that we're dealing with a weird situation where Hawaii somehow is involved in Americans understanding the field of battle that they're in, as Pearl Harbor might have done, but I don't really know the truth about Pearl Harbor, and now that we're all a little more attuned to conspiracy theories and stuff like that, who knows about what happened originally. I'm just saying, let me just take the comic book version of what happened. It opened American eyes to the threat that they were facing, and that might be what happened again here. But I think that the Ukrainian situation and the Hawaii situation, neither of them are the last conversation in the end. In the end, the last conversation is going to be not off the coast of Hawaii, but back to Jekyll Island, the creature from Jekyll Island. And that's what you can't necessarily tell people, right? Satoshi showed us the difference. And so once you see Bitcoin, you can understand, and you compare it to the other thing, you can understand what's wrong. The way I always think of it is counterfeiting. I've mentioned this before. Counterfeit detectors, what they do? They don't study all the different counterfeits. They study the original. They are familiar with the authentic. And that's how they can tell the scam counterfeit money. Now, that's one of the neat things about Bitcoin, is that once you understand Bitcoin, you can see the scam that is the US dollar. You can see the scam that is the feedback loop that's broken, that perpetuates collusion for liars to dupe a major portion of the population, right? So because Bitcoiners have familiarized themselves with the authentic, what isn't authentic is very obvious the minute you look at it, right? Now, not everyone is there. Not everyone is even close to there, right? Some people are still saying, oh, I heard the experts said COVID is back. I need to wear a mask again, right? So there are definitely people, and unfortunately, way too many of them, that are still unaware of the abyss that he's talking about, right? But it's what we've been talking about and what Bitcoiners have been saying, that the best way for people to understand what's going on in this relationship between Americans, America, the nation, America Inc., and who wins and who loses in this equation, right? Remember, most Americans believe they won World War II. They didn't. The USA Inc. won World War II. The people didn't get shit, right? Nothing. They got a bit of the privilege of the dollar, which really just made them fat and consumers, right? Psychologically, it was no good. It was debasing psychologically. It was good for people selling shit around the world, right? It was good for the people who managed U.S. Treasury. Then it was all great, right? You get the privilege of the money, everyone buying your debt, everyone subsidizing American consumption. That was all great for the people who wanted to perpetuate that system. But for individual Americans, right, it brings us back to what, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a kind of a little internet tiff yesterday. And I think it's an important thing to mention up. Now, remember, we do not fat shame here, okay? I'm not in the fat shaming. I'm about to talk about heaviness and big people, okay? I'm not doing it to, I have nothing but sympathy for people who struggle with this, all right? I do not think of myself as the same. I got lucky. I don't have that, whatever it is, addiction to sugar, food, so I'm not, whatever I'm saying here, we're going to talk about the Richmond, north of Richmond line for a second, right? The 5'3", 300 pounds bag of fudge rounds, right? So just know, it's not to shame, right? But we got to talk about health. We got to talk about these things. And so Rainn Wilson, the actor who I like, right? The guy from The Office. He's a swell guy, right? No problem with that guy. Just a great guy, right? He said the following, and he's just wrong. So I'm not trying to dunk on him either, right? So he says, if I were writing a song about Richmond, north of Richmond, I wouldn't talk about obese people on welfare. I'd sing about CEOs who make 400 times their average worker salary, up from 50 times 30 years ago, and the corporations that pay zero taxes and offshore tax shelters for billionaires. So that's a fair point, right? So I'm not trying to say to Rainn Wilson, you're wrong. He's totally free to have that position, right? But Ashley St. Clair responded to him. And her response to me rings much more true than Rainn Wilson's slightly disassociated, disconnected point of view. And this is what she says. She says, perhaps your net worth is clouding this. But when people like Oliver Anthony look to their left and right for neighbors to fight back against the system with, and instead see a welfare-addicted gluttons who won't fight against a system that is drugging them physically, mentally, and monetarily, you write Richmond, north of Richmond. Perhaps you should stick to acting instead of songwriting. It seems being number one on the charts, Oliver Anthony has spoken to the people he wanted to speak to, and I can guarantee he didn't have you in mind. Now, that's exactly everything, right? That's everything. Everything is right there. When I think even something that frustrates Bitcoiners, when they look to their left and their right, to their American neighbors, what do they see? They see people putting masks on. They see people casually saying, when's your booster shot scheduled? Not even assuming that you're not getting a booster shot, right? So there's a huge discord. And when General MacArthur talks about Americans falling off the abyss, right, that's kind of what it is. The abyss is, in the end, that no one is coming to save you. The people in Hawaii have already fallen off the abyss, right? They've already seen what is actually happening. It's up to the people of America to look to the people of East Palestine, to look to the people of Hawaii, to look to the people that Oliver Anthony is connecting with, right? And start showing them what is actually going on. And I think with what's going on in Ukraine and all that, there's not going to be much more avoiding it, right? Americans every day have more and more reason to wake up. Now, there will be a population that will never do it, right? Ever. But if you start looking at some of the election numbers, for example, right, that's why you're getting articles. Don't vote. Elections are bad, right? Are we even going to get a 2024 election? Some people say no, right? Cernovich says no way. A lot of people say no way, no way. I think we're going to get some facsimile, but it won't matter anymore. These systems are creating scenarios that are hard to predict after, but we still see the direction of things. We can see the direction of things in America because at this point, right, it isn't just Trump anymore. Elon, Vivek, RFK, all of us, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? We'll see. I think we're going to be A-okay. And, here's what we're left with, for example, right? This is how weak and pathetic the combined forces of celebrities, the media, and the political order have brought us, right? You go to Quartz, right? Quartz News, right? One of their big stories today. These are the people that are still like, Trump got indicted for the 4th time. Read about how crazy it is and how he's going to jail, right? So this is a story they are trying to push today. World's largest pizza chain is closing 142 stores across Russia, right? So the big loss of Russia in the war, because we can't talk about any other losses, are they're losing Domino's Pizza, all right? They don't have Domino's anymore. Domino's Pizza, the worst pizza going. Terrible, gross, disgusting, right? And that's supposed to be the loss for Russia, right? Well, if you're coming at it from a Bitcoiner, you're not seeing the loss of a shitty pizza chain as a World War III loss. It's the wrong side of the ledger, right? Look, the people like Krugman, 3%. 3% is the right amount. The people like Ronan Farrow, right, Elon, and anyone else who's running cover for the Bidens and these folks, it's not a strong enough force anymore to withstand the other side of the coin. And the other side of the coin is coming fast. And it's counting new people that join it every single day. More and more people joining the front that everything you're hearing is a lie and all of these things are scams. And again, right, there'll be no way out once everything is admittedly broken, which we can all see in front of us. There'll be no saying, oh, but the economy isn't broken or the dollar isn't broken, right? Once everything is broken, and we'll see it straight to the elections, every single institution and system we have in American life that was invented from World War II on is done, finished, not coming back. Almost unsalvageable, right? We got to start fresh, new, totally. And that's what we're doing here. And we're going to do it, and it's going to be great. And so we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. There's no reason to be demoralized by any of this stuff. It's dark, it's sad, but I think we're almost through it, everyone. All right, let's see what we got in the comments. And then I got some stuff to do today. Where are we here? Yes, Jared, it was Douglas McGregor. Yeah, that's exactly who it was. Good morning, Bitcoin Conquistadors. We love it, Jose. We are the Bitcoin Conquistadors. I love it. It's a great name. Whoever Biden puppet master is shouldn't have charged with elder abuse and straight up cruelty to humanity. Oh yeah. No, it's been elder abuse for a long time. They don't give a shit though. I mean, that's the least of their crimes, right? A little bit of elder abuse, but I actually love it. That's what I keep saying. Like, I love it that this guy is degrading and can't do the job. Like, somehow I find it biblically poetic, right? I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect. It's how you see, not tell, right? We wouldn't know. Again, it's what I say about the leader of the free world line, right? It's so great that we're led to believe that this man is the leader of the free world. It destroys the fake title on the presidency. They never were the leader of the free world. Why are we pretending? Right? Or they might have been at one point, but not anymore. These decrepit and geriatric government goons need to go. No kidding. No kidding. Assalam. Is there any point for the elder population to own BTC? No, I mean, I don't know about pointless. I mean, I think opposite. I mean, in a sense, they're all on fixed income, right? So they're only getting pensions. I mean, in America anyway. So I know my fixed income parents probably are going to get screwed by all the stuff. I don't let them manage any Bitcoin. They're too incompetent. So I'll just take care of them, of course. But they should be able to manage it. My dad has asked a few times, but I won't. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's too much trouble for me. I'd rather just do it myself. They still haven't figured out like their phones. So besides spewing venom, what has Ronan brought to humanity? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't really ever pay attention to the guy, so I don't care. But watching him try and take a shot at Elon Musk, got the attention of the Breakup producers, me. Smash the like. We love the like. One of the best parts of the Creature from Jekyll Island is the examination of the report from Iron Mountain. Oh, I'll check that out. I don't know that, Daniel. Let me check that out. It was a long time ago that I read The Creature of Jekyll Island, so I'll have to look into it again. Cheers, everyone. See you, P-Man. Have a great day, man. Everyone wishing you a great day, great day, great day. Jose, isn't the logical conclusion of the nation state in its current form totalitarian? I think so. Yeah, I think that's the right way we'll be taught it in history, right? That if you give it too much power, it'll roll and create a gravitational pull unto itself and grow. Right? America's republic, not a democracy. Yeah, I've been telling everyone that for a long time. People who think that it's, someone could say a republic is a form of democracy, but not exactly. Post-World War II, Americans benefit from a large-scale Cantillon effect of living under the US dollar, but it was a dependent relationship that is coming unraveled at the seams right now. That's precisely it. Yeah, this is the saddest way to put it, unaware victims. Yeah, that's why you have to be, again, about all this stuff, right? My feeling continues to be when you hear people like, oh, did you hear Trump's going to jail? Or did you hear, Bitcoin is a scam or whatever? You have to, would you get mad at a blind person for bumping into you on a sidewalk? Would you do that? If a blind person hits you on the sidewalk, would you be like, you fucking blind idiot, watch where you're going? No, it would be like, oh, don't worry, I'm sorry. You kind of know how to feel empathetic for them. So I think that's the best way to approach some of these broken brain Democrats, Republicans, right? All around. Usually the best way, right? The only thing I'm boosting is if someone casually asks you when your next booster is scheduled, the proper response is get the fuck away from me. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, what I usually tell them is I'm only waiting to get it when I can get it in the eyeball. I want it in my eye. I don't, it's a little too slow, I want max power vax in my eyeball. Great show. Much appreciated. Thanks a lot, my man. Great day, Bitcoin Conquistadors. I love it. Always darkest before dawn. Indeed. The orange pill sunrise is near. It's here, guys. We're already in it. I mean, I don't live in a not Bitcoin standard world. I'm here to, watch the shift and transition, and I think we won, guys. But that doesn't mean we can't and shouldn't and mustn't be diligent, and we can't take our eye off it at the end here. That's why we do. That's why we meet every morning, right? We're not going to let them get away with anything. Not a thing. Nothing gets through the space. Nothing gets by us. Nothing. We get it all, right? We get all of it. So, and we will until World War III is over. We're going to get it all. It's Pokemon mission, Pokemon organizing principles. All right, team. Indeed, go forth and hodl. Gradually, then suddenly. That's what we like to hear. All right, team. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't think I have any other media appearances today. But tomorrow we will be doing spaces again. So join us tomorrow for some spaces. It'll be a lot of fun. All right. Peace, everyone.